Yeah, because you guys might actually want to practice this one. The other one, I would say the bathtub desk. Let's, because I was struggling so hard to remember how we did that. I would say let's just not. We'll just focus on this one. So, um, okay. So I'm going to start by, I'm just going to remove the grid that you typically see in your model space. So because we're kind of focusing on the 3D modeling part of what we're doing here today, I mean, we could plot this too, but I want to mainly focus on the modeling part of it. So what I would like to do first is, in order to draw this, I kind of need to know where my points are going to be in space. And so because it's such a weird shape, that's going to be very critical to us actually getting this right on the first go around. So one thing you can do is you can start with your, let's see, do you want to start with the elevation or the plan? All right, let's start with the plan view. I think that'll be the easiest place to start off. So focusing in on that, I'm going to go back to my top-down view in my view cube. And then we're going to sketch this guy up. So let's start with what we know. So we know that the top here from this point to this point is 24 inches, and we know from that point to that point is 18. So we just need to draw in a rectangle to represent that. So we're going to go 24 that way, 18 that way. All right. Zoomed in really far, apparently. All right. So we're starting with this. So we'll be forming this rectangle here. And then we got to figure out the rest of the geometry based on that known element. So first things first, it looks like they give us some dimensions here that say from this corner out to here, this is offset 4 inches. From this corner to here, that's offset 2 inches. And then it kind of flip-flops over here. So this is another 4, that's another 2. So they also give you an angle, the typical angle. So from that corner, or from this side to where this line goes, that'll be 135 degrees. So we need to also keep that in mind as well. What we can do is I'll show you a couple of ways you can get that angle right. Okay, so first way I'll show you here is if you were drawing that line. You can take the line command and you can draw a line here. I'm just going to drag my cursor up and I'm going to say 2 inches for my length, just like that. And then what I want to do now is use the rotate command. And I'm going to use that to highlight that line and then spin it 135. So you can do it that way. And then if you were to actually dimension that angle, you can actually see that that is truly 135-degree angle, just like what they have drawn. That's one way to get your angle right. Other things you can do too is, let's see if I can remember how to do this. I remember doing this in school. If you use the line command and click on your base point. Oh yeah, that's right. That's how you do that. So you can go a length of 2 inches, hit tab, and then it should let you set the angle. So right now it's 90 degrees, that's 180. So I need to add 45 to that 180 to really get to that same angle that we're trying to represent there. So if I was to do that, that should give me an angle of 225. Oops, 225. And then I can also do that same thing, dim angular, pull that, and it gives you 135. So we're going to do that for all these corners. So we're going to go up here and we're going to draw these lines in for this corner as well. So 4 inches long, tab, and then right now it's set to 90, but I need to add 45 to that to get it to be the 135. So that'd be 135. Yep, 135. Boom. All right. And then if you would like, because these are all the same angle, what you could do is you could either copy these over or you could spend a little bit of time and just draw those lines in. but I'm just going to copy them using the base point from there to snap it to there, base point from there to snap it to there. And that gives me kind of the sort of outline of where we're going to be going with this. So, all right, now from here, it's a simple game of connect the dots because we're going to take these lines, connect these, take these lines, connect these, and just kind of draw this out. All right. So it looks very strange, but this is going to be forming the general shape of the object that we're going to be working off of. And so just kind of sketching these lines into just like they have drawn. These are those panels that we're seeing coming down at angles, just like that. And then on the inside, we can worry about this part later. What this is it's a removable top that they have set in place so that way they could run the wiring for the register down through the base of the pedestal into the outlet on the floor. So we can look at that in a little bit. I'm more worried about, more concerned about getting the actual shape and model of the pedestal done first, and then we can come back and actually add that removable top on there after the fact. So let's just start with what we need here. So we've got the top-down view drawn in with just without the removable top. So we're going to go on to one of our elevation views. I think we probably start here with the narrower side. So starting with that, what I would like to do is copy the plan view that we currently have drawn. We're going to slide it over here. We're going to rotate that around just like this so that it's facing the correct direction because we're going to be wanting it to line up vertically with what we're working on below. All right. And then what I want to kind of do, wondered, should I work in 3D right away or should I just do this first? Well, you know what? We can do this in 3D here. We have enough information to get started with it. So, all right, I take it back. Well, we'll leave that there, but I'm gonna use this here to start working into my 3D space. So what I'm gonna do is hold down the Shift key and my middle mouse button, and I'm gonna spin my point of view so that way I can see a little bit better at an angle of what it is I'm working on here. So because we have this funky little shape, we have to keep some things in mind. So the first thing that I would like to point out is that we know these different heights. And when we set these different heights, we're going to take lines vertically up off of the plan view in order to start to form, start with like a wireframe model first and then turn it into a 3D model. So, and when I say a wireframe model, I do actually mean like it will legitimately be just lines in space to start. So it gives us kind of the template of where we need to go to drop the panels on the actual pedestal itself in a little bit. All right, so all right, let's start with this. So the side that sticks out the furthest, which would be our 4-inch side here, that point is 24 inches off the floor. So we're gonna go and take a line 24 inches straight up in the Z direction. And I'm just using our plan view as a guideline to draw these lines in. And same thing here, 24 inches from the floor to where that point lives in space. All right, and then the lower points, which are the ones that stick out, it looks like 2 inches from the edge because it's a little bit closer towards the middle of the pedestal. That would be this guy. And that needs to be 14 inches off the floor. And we're going to do that over here as well. So 14 inches for those 2 points. Okay. And then comes the last point. So that would be the outline here. And those are all going to be 34 inches off the floor. So I need to take a line from that point, 34 inches up, a line from that point, 34 inches up, making sure I'm going in the Z direction. You know, it's easy to draw it on the wrong plane if you're, you know, doing this real fast. So, and then 34 inches up from here. All right. So we have this weird sort of conglomeration of lines at the moment. No big deal. But we're going to start with this first before we get into any other into any actual 3D modeling. So what we did was we kind of took the plan view, took the elevation heights that we knew from our architectural drawing set, and took some lines straight up off of our plan view to get those points locked into where they need to be. All right. So now that we have this, we need to now, let's see, we need to now figure out how to connect these points together. So we focus on the slide that we're looking at here. We can start there. And I'm going to change my line color. Perhaps I'll actually change these as well, because I think that these are getting a little confusing. So I'm going to make these, let's make those yellow. We'll go pink for the base, yellow for the vertical heights, and then we'll just pick a new color for, well, this is not very good layer management, but we'll go with the greenish color for these lines that we're about to draw in. All right, so now what we need to do is looking at this side here. Very confusing, but we're going to play a game of sort of connected dots on this as well. So we're going to connect this point to that point, which would be from there to there. Then we need to connect this point to that point, which would be there to there, which is going to give you, it's going to give you the first essential triangle of what we're trying to build here. Then you can connect this dot to this dot too. So it's hard to see, but that is going to form the first panel of our pedestal. All right. And then at the very bottom, I think if I remember right, this actually lines up with that. And this does line up with that. Yep, it does. So knowing that, and also one other thing too that we have to pay attention to is that there is a toe kick under this too. And let's see, what's the toe kick height? Are we giving it? Oh, 4 inches tall. So because we have a 4-inch, well, the toe kick is 4 inches tall, we need to go back into here. And before we connect this line down to this line here, well, I mean, I suppose we could connect it now. We just have to raise it up 4 inches to make it right. All right. So once we have that, we're going to take this point and see if I can, and maybe, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Let's draw a line 4 inches straight up here off of this point, which represents the toe kick. And then you can connect that point to this point. So that way your panel is at the correct height and it's not going to overlap the toe kick. All right. And then the last thing is connect this dot to this dot. That look right? Maybe not quite. Oh, wait, I think I know what's going on here. I don't think that line actually exists. It doesn't. Aha, okay, that's what it was. That connects to there, and then this connects to there, which then matches up because they have this sort of trapezoid shape panel at the bottom. So I've connected all those dots together now, so everything kind of lines up. It's funky looking. And then we have this top triangle to still draw in for this side. And then once that's done, this side I mean, I'm going to call that side done for now until we get to the modeling part of it. But what we need to do before we get there is we just kind of need to connect this to there, connect this to there, which then if you look at it from the front, it looks pretty spot on. The only thing we're missing is this angle here, but that's on the opposite side. So really, that doesn't matter to us at this moment. And as I pivot around, you can see that, you know, even though I'm looking at it flat here, and it kind of matches up with my view, especially if I hide everything except for, you know, the yellow or the green lines, you can see really a better picture of what that looks like. It's all there, but then if you spin it, you can see that it's not everything is in the same plane like we're used to drawing in 2D. And so where that's going to come into play is when we start making the model, is that's going to be super important here, making sure that these planes are kind of living out there in space. So I'm going to bring all my layers back. We're going to do the next side. So that would be, we can talk about this longer side here. Okay. So if I look at it from the side of the pedestal, you can see I have that little triangle that we're seeing right now. I just go to my green layer, you can see that. And we need to fill in the rest of the information. So we need to go back and we need to do the same thing we just did before. We need to pick up some lines here. So this one's already set. This is at 14 inches from the floor. Yep, so that's exactly where it needs to be. That's this line right here. The next line over is the 24-inch one from the floor to the, it would be to this corner here. So we need to go 24 inches up and then connect. Well, actually, I already had that line drawn, I guess. Oops. All right, connect that dot to, looks like that dot there. Okay. All right. And then the last thing we're going to do is connect this dot, that dot for that side. Actually, one more here from there to there. Right. And then is there anything left? Maybe this base one. We'll go from this corner across to this corner there. And then boop, boop. It starts to get easier as you keep going because you can actually have more points that you can physically see. When you do your first side, it's always the hardest one because you got to make sure everything's lined up just right. And you have nothing else to really reference. So you kind of have to go based on what you can see. And the more you get into this, the easier it gets. Although, albeit it does look a little messy because we have several different lines flying around all over the place, but we'll get to cleaning that up here in just a moment. All right, so let's go back to the small side again. Because if you notice that actually what's happening here is that the two small sides actually do match. So if you looked at it from the left or the right, it's going to look exactly the same. So at that point, you could do a couple things. You could either draw in those lines again, or you could actually just take the mirror command if you'd like to, and you could actually just take these lines and mirror them across, which would be fine too. Now, if I was to do that, just mirror that across to there. Okay, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's actually flipped the other way too. So we'll draw them in. I'll draw them in. All right. Here's what we're going to do though. So we're going to start with, let's see, we're going to start with the lines at the base again, just like we did the other side. So starting here, I'm going to draw a line straight across, right? And then from there, we need a line that comes up from that base corner to this corner. And then from that corner up to the tallest corner up there. And then we got to connect these together. Oops, I got to go from this corner over to here. And this corner over to here. All right. So it's getting a little messy, but it's going to come out just fine. I look at it from the top down. Those green lines should really be, yeah, they like fit perfect right over the top of those pink lines that we drew to start with. So that's what you want to see. If there's any variance in there, then you know something isn't quite right. But you can see that these green lines are right on top of that plan view that we had drawn earlier today. So last side. And then we can actually 3D model some stuff here. So you got to connect these dots again. I'm starting to get a little bit disoriented just looking at it. So you got so many lines overlapping here, but that's okay. Get through it together. I'll make sure I'm snapping to my endpoint here. All right. All right. And let's look back at this again. So we're going to connect this point here to this point here. Okay. And we got to connect that point up to this point here. Okay. I think that does it. So if I turn off all the layers except for this green layer, you actually see that actual three-dimensional shape start to take place. Starting to look pretty cool. All right. And then the only thing left I could draw in as well in wireframe if I wanted to is the base, but I think we can add the base in. We'll add the base in after the fact. We don't have to do that right now. Okay, so just like what we did earlier, we're just going to focus in on the panels, and we're going to come back to doing some detail work later. Like we're going to add in the removable top, and we're going to add in the pedestal base below the pedestal here after we get done with making the model of the actual pedestal itself. So before we go any further, what I would like to do is set my visual style over to either conceptual or shaded with edges. I'll go with shaded with edges today. Maybe actually I'll go with conceptual. I'll go with conceptual. Do that. So what I'm going to do next is we are going to actually draw some panels off to the side. And let's see, what did we make this out of again? SS3. I'll figure out what SS3 is real quick. Orion Deep Nocturne. It looks like we drew it at 3/4. Not sure if that's accurate, but we'll match it. We'll do a 3/4 here. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a panel off to the side. Use our box tool up here in your 3D toolbar, which also, by the way, if I didn't go over that too, the 3D tools are accessible through down here in the bottom right corner of your AutoCAD user interface. There's usually what you're used to seeing is this one called drafting and annotation, which holds most of the 2D commands in AutoCAD. If you ever want to do something in 3D, you don't have to switch these, but it definitely helps. So when you do switch it though, keep in mind that as you do switch from one user interface to another, things like your properties or your tool palettes will actually close because what it's doing is it's kind of resetting. And so if I clicked on, well, if I go to 2D, you know, the drafting annotation here, you can see that my properties disappeared, my tool palettes disappeared. That's no big deal. You can get them back, but I wanted to bring it up because it does happen. If you have those open, like I do all the time, I just have them docked on the side. You just have to type in properties to get properties back and type in tool palettes to get your tool palettes back. They're not gone forever. All right. So, all right, moving on. Like I said, we're going to draw in some panels next. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to take the box tool and we're going to go off to the side of our model and we're going to draw in an arbitrary panel here. So this panel, I'm going to set it to be a little bit larger than what I know it needs to be. So we're going to go at, let's say, 60 inches wide by 60 inches long. Okay, and then we're going to make this 3/4 thick. Okay, so we're kind of left with something like that. And I'm going to put this on layer 0 so that way it doesn't overlap, or I mean, I can turn the lines off if I want to later. So I have this on its own separate layer right now. All right, so what I'm going to do is decorate. I'm going to clad the framing or the framed model here. So I'm making a copy of my panel. So I want to keep one off to the side for when I need it, like to make another one. And to get this model to start off with, we need to pick a side. So I'm just going to start with the side I'm looking at here, this longer portion. And we need to use the align command to take this panel and prop it up on that wireframe to be the exact, to be in line with the different planes that we just drew with the wireframe. So we're going to use the align command here. And we have to use 3 points on this one. So what we need to do is I'm going to start with this corner at the bottom. I'm going to snap it to this corner here. And then I'm going to do this corner and snap it to that corner. And then I just got to pick a point. And what I'm going to do is pick this corner here, the top left corner. And I'm going to then go ahead and click on this point here. What that should do, and it's, it's a little bit off. I can stretch that with that grip point. But what that should do is it should prop that up so that way it is perfectly lined up with these green lines that we just drew earlier. So we need to do that for all 3 triangles on this side of the cube. So it might get a little confusing here for a second. So you can do a couple things. You can hide. What I'm going to do is use the hide objects command, and I'm going to hide this first panel we drew. Just remove that from our view so we don't have to look at it. And then we're going to go on to the next triangle. So we're going to use the align command again. And let's see, how do we want to do this? I guess what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to take the midpoint that's right here. I'm going to snap it to this corner. All right, I'm going to take the midpoint over here. I'm going to snap it to this corner. And then what I want to do is take this corner right here, the top of our panel on the bottom left, and then take it and click on this point here. Which you can see AutoCAD did a little flippity-doo-dah and spun it around really quick. But I just extended a little bit past because what we're going to do is we're going to use the slice command here shortly to make all these panels actually come together at the perfect angles they need to be at. All right. Oh, and I forgot to make a copy of my panel, rats. Okay, so I got to do that, but that's okay. Hide objects, just like before. So we got one more panel to draw in. I'm going to make this again 60 inches by 60 inches at 3/4 thick. I can't believe I did that. What a noob. A noob move to do. All right, I'm using the align command again, picking that corner, picking this corner, and that corner. Make sure I got that right. Yeah, this corner here. And then I'm going to take this corner and line it up with that one. All right. And again, just like before, I'm going to make these overhang a little bit. Doesn't really matter how much they overhang. I just want to make sure that they do overhang. All right. So we're going to unhide our panels, and it's going to get real crazy here for a second, but please bear with me. All right. So we need to remember a couple things. So this here is the panel that's our top triangle. This panel here should be, that is our bottom triangle. And this is our middle one. So top triangle, bottom triangle, middle. All right, so we need to get all of these to actually properly, slice these up properly so they all fit together just right. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we will start with we'll start with the bottom and the middle triangle. So we're going to isolate those, or maybe I'll just hide the top triangle so it's out of our way for right now. All right, so we should be left with those two. You can see where they line up. So this would be lined up with that bottom set of wireframe lines we drew. This one is lined up with the middle set of lines we have drawn here. And what we need to do is we can use a command in AutoCAD called interfere. All right, so interfere is actually typically used for machine parts. What it will do is it will allow you to select two parts in your drawing, like two separate 3D parts, and it will scan those parts for anything that actually intersects a different part. So if there's any clashing going on, it picks it up and it makes it into a red object in 3D. Why this is important is because when we do our 3-point slice, we need points to be able to snap that 3-point slice to. The only real way to do that properly with weird angles like this is to use that interfere command. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on one part. We're going to hit enter, select our second part, and hit enter. Come on, there we go. And you can see in red there, that is where those two panels intersect each other. And so what we're going to do now is when you do that command, you've selected your parts, hit enter, this little submenu will pop up. And within that submenu, there's something that's really important that we need to remember to do. That is this delete interference objects created on close. It's by default turned on. And if you have that turned on and you hit close, that red object disappears and you won't be able to get back to it. So what we need to do is we need to uncheck this box. We need to hit close. And then if I go into here, into my 2D wireframe, it's green, but this object here is that 3D part that it made. So let's make it red and bring it back here. There we go. All right. Okay, so now you see we got this red diamond in the middle. We got our middle panel and our bottom panel. All right, so we're gonna do some slicing as promised. So we're gonna do some practicing here. So we're doing 3-point slices mainly for this object. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the slice command and select our panel. So we need this guy, we need this guy. Hit enter, and then we're gonna select 3 points down here. We're gonna go into that part of the command. And what we're gonna do now is we need to select 3 points on this red diamond. Those 3 points are really critical as, they gotta be where this object interferes the two panels. So that's where the red diamond comes in. We're gonna take this endpoint here, this endpoint there. All right, was trying to snap to a perpendicular point. I can't have that. And then another endpoint here. So pretty much where the diamond starts to flare out, we want to grab those 3 points. And we're going to say we want to keep B or both sides. Okay, so now what we've done is we've created a slice through both of those panels. And if I go, I can now delete that interference object. It's no longer needed. But what I can do is I can see that this panel here is exactly where it needs to be. That triangle is, where it wants to be. But this here is the other half of that bottom triangle. And we actually don't even need that anymore. It's kind of trash now, so we can delete that. And then the opposite hand for this, go back into conceptual, will be easier to see. So this panel was originally these two squares or these two triangles, but we only need this part, so we can delete this part now. So you can see we're starting to come together. We got that angle cut through. It might be a little funky looking so far, but it is, you know, a perfect slice through where those two panels would interfere with each other. So then comes the last panel on the top. We need to unhide. And we're gonna click on these two panels, or well, we could also, that's the bottom one, right? Yeah, it is. So I'm just gonna hide that one. We'll get rid of that. We'll hide that object. And we're gonna focus in, oh my gosh, I hid the top panel too, didn't I? Oh. All right, hide objects. Okay, boom. All right, that's what I'm looking for. So I want to see the middle panel and I want to see the top panel. Let's see. This is the middle panel here. It's already kind of a triangular shape. This here is our top panel, which we have not sliced yet, so it's still square. And then we need to do the exact same process. The process is what we did earlier. We're going to use the interfere command again. And again, really important when you use this command, you want to make sure you select one object, hit enter, and then select the second object. If you select both objects at the same time, it won't know what to do and it'll freak out. So you got to do one object, enter, second object, enter. And then it should give you that interference object there, just like this. And again, real important, make sure you uncheck that box. Don't know why AutoCAD doesn't allow you to set that as a default, but every time you do this command, it will delete the object unless you uncheck that box. So another important step when you're trying to do a 3-point slice like this and get that nice interference object there. So we're going to uncheck that and hit close. All right, back into 2D wireframe. Set this back to a red object, so we'll put it on the dimension layer for now. All right, and we got to be real careful not to get confused about what we're looking at, because right now it's kind of messy, but it's going to get cleaner as we go. So we're going to use that slice command. Select both panels. And then we're going to go down here and turn on the 3-point slice. Okay, so just like before, where that diamond flares out, it's kind of hard to see, but where that diamond flares out, that's where you want to select your point. So we'll go that point, and that point there would be fine. You could also do the opposite. You could go here, here, and here. It doesn't really matter, but you do want to pick 3 points where those two parts meet. And when you're done, I usually tell it to keep both sides, especially for stuff like this, because we're slicing 2 objects at once and we want to be careful not to delete anything we don't mean to. So, all right, back into conceptual. All right, this here was originally part of the middle triangle, and it's the extra part we don't need. We can delete that. This was part of the top triangle, but is no longer needed, so that can go away. All right, and then I got to unhide to bring back that. So we've kind of got this funky little shape going on so far. It gets better, promise, but we got to do the other 3 sides. Now it's the same process for all 3, so you will get very, very good at using interfere and 3-point slice doing this example drawing. Yeah, we're gonna pretty much do the same thing for the other 3 sides now, and then we can clean up the corners.
Can I ask a quick question real quick?
Yeah, of course.
It's actually not related. I have to go give myself an insulin shot. Would you mind if I stepped away for a couple minutes?
Yeah, we're good. We could take a couple minute break if you'd like. I mean, that's fine.
Awesome. Thank you.
I need to rest my voice, so yeah. All right, we'll take a couple minutes. We'll be right back. Did it have on hold music for you guys? No, I was just wondering. I got put on hold the other day and it had on hold music, and I was like, I didn't even know we had that.
No, the only music I heard was the elevator music in my head.
Not Barracuda this time.
No, it wasn't Barracuda.
We were singing that earlier today.
It's still in your head. What are you talking about?
All right, we'll get back to it here. All right. Okay, so we did one side. We got to do the other sides here still. I got an idea. I want to try something real quick. Just out of curiosity, I wonder what would happen here. Oh, shoot. I meant to delete source objects. My bad. I just want to see if this actually lines up if I do this. Oh, it does. Look at that. Okay, I'll explain what I just did real quick. I just wanted to see if that would work. So because this side and this side are essentially the same, they're just kind of mirrored from each other. What I was doing is I was using the mirror 3D command. So you can kind of do that. Once you've got one side drawn, you can take that mirror 3D command, select your panels. And then what I did was I selected the middle of our base here. And I kind of just dragged a line using my ortho snap, making sure that's turned on. And I went straight out this way and straight up this way, because what you're seeing there is I'm drawing like a plane in space. And then I'm going to take those parts that I selected and flip them over that mirror so that they're facing this way. Let's not delete source objects. And then if you do notice too, like they are mirrored the other way too. So then what I did was I did one more of those mirror 3D commands, highlighted these parts one more time, grabbed the middle of the base of these these lines that we drew in space, dragged it out, dragged it up, drew that plane, and I'm just flipping all of those panels over the center of that cube, pedestal, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm deleting those. So you can do it that way too. Or if you want to draw these in 3D, again, you can. There's no harm in doing it either way. It's just a little bit faster to flip it in the mirror command. And I kind of wanted to see if it would actually work. And now that I know it does, I mean, that's pretty cool. So, all right. So let's go ahead and do the other two sides. Let's see. I want to hide these panels first. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these panels, I'm going to move them way over here. We're going to move them, let's say 500 inches that way, so that they're out of our way. They still live over there, but we're going to ignore them for right now. All right, so now we got to draw in the two small sides. So again, just like we did earlier, we're going to draw in a panel. I'm going to make it 60 by 60 by 3/4 thick. All right. And then flip it over so that's on the layer 0. That way it's not on the same layer as all my lines. All right. And this time, let's see if I can not mess it up. We're going to make a copy of that. And we're going to use the align command. Just like earlier, we're going to take this panel and we're going to pick 3 points. One source point, one destination point, one source point, one destination point. And then this top corner, grabbing that and setting it to this destination point there. It gives me the panels all kind of in line with those the first little geometric triangle that we have down there. So we've got our first triangle in place. I'll hide this one and then we'll do the next one. So same process, copy right over there. And then we're going to do the align again. And kind of like what I did before, I did this, you know, different than the first triangle. I did this with the midpoint this time. You could still do it with the edge of the, you could still go over here and pick this endpoint. The only reason I didn't do that was because, why did I do that? Let's just do it with that endpoint. Just keep it consistent. We'll go from there, and we'll do the top triangle first, and then we'll do the middle one last. There to there, and from there to there. So really what you're trying to do is get all these lined up. So that's our top triangle. And I do want to make sure this is extended just a little bit past where I'm going to be slicing it. So now that that's there, we'll hide that one too. Then we're going to do the middle triangle and we'll be done with drawing in our panels there. All right, so I was about to get into this earlier and I kind of realized I kind of goofed up a little bit. So the reason why in the middle triangle, I was using the midpoint. Oh, okay. I was using the midpoint here as my first source point was because I was trying to make sure that if I use the midpoint there, line it up to that corner, use the midpoint there, line it up to that corner. I was trying to make sure I had enough overage on the top and the bottom of that triangle. So I kind of was thinking I could do it that way. However, it doesn't really make a big difference because we can always stretch those panels too. So I'm just going to go midpoint here to that corner, midpoint to this corner, and then the top corner right here to, we'll go with this corner down here. It's always fun to watch AutoCAD do the, like it flips it around. All right, anyways, extend that just a little beyond our triangle. All right. And then we're going to unhide all these and it's going to look like a mess again. Okay. All right. Then we got to kind of reorientate ourselves here. So if we did what we did previously, we can start with the bottom triangle and the middle triangle, which would be those two, right? I think that's correct. So I'm going to hide this one. Use hiding objects or hide objects. We'll hide that triangle. Okay, I got the right ones. Yay. All right. Yeah, it's hard to see, but what I'm doing is I'm kind of looking at the green wireframe model lines that we have here and trying to make sure that this top line and this top triangle aren't visible. If they're not visible, that means that that isn't the panel that's like, lined up with that. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't accidentally grab that one. All right, we need to use the interfere command next. So interfere. We're going to go first panel, enter, second panel, enter, and uncheck this delete interference objects box and close. All right. And we can take this little diamond shape, put it on a layer that doesn't really match up with any of the other layer colors. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a 3-point slice to get these all cut to the correct angle. So start our slice command, select our object, and then we need to come down here, select 3 points. And then kind of like we talked about before, what I like to do is grab like this middle flare on the triangle. We're going to go from there to there, and then, or sorry, diamond, not triangle, but anyways, from there to there to there or here, it could be either one. But then when you're done selecting those 3 points, we'll go ahead and keep both sides. We'll go back into, and delete that too, but go back into conceptual. And we're gonna get rid of anything we don't need anymore. So we actually, it looks like this is the middle panel there that can go away. And then this is part of that lower triangle. Oh wait, no, this is part of the lower triangle. So we want to be careful not to delete anything we don't mean to, but yeah, so when you're done, you should have the outline visible. If you don't, then you might have deleted something by accident. So you just want to be careful of that. But because we have those green lines on here, that means we did it right. So then we just need to unhide, and we are going to hide our lower triangle now. And then we want to do our interfere command on these two, and then do another 3-point slice. Interfere, select one panel, enter, select the other, and then we don't need to delete interference objects, so we're going to keep that unchecked. And this can go to the dimension layer just to be consistent with what we've been doing so far. Okay, and then what we're going to do is one more 3-point slice, grabbing both these white panels here, and go down to 3 points down below. All right, starting to get a little more tricky. I can hardly see this diamond shape now, so I can see a little easier up in this corner. So what I'm going to do is grab the 2 flared out points up there, and then I need to grab, I can get to it. Starting to get real messy down here, but should be this point here, should be the right one. Again, it's kind of where these shapes come together. So keep both sides, delete the interference piece. Then we're going to go back to conceptual and clean up some of this extra stuff we don't need. That can go away. And then I think that's the other one that goes away, right? Yeah. So if I unhide those, we should be left with, yep, 3 panels, and you can see all the outline of that pedestal shape. So, all right, cool. You guys have any questions so far? You've been pretty quiet. Nothing? All right, cool. Cool. All right. So I'm going to do the same method of approach that what we did earlier when we mirrored these panels from one side to the other. We're going to take the mirror command here, or mirror 3D, and we're going to take these panels and we're going to flip them from the center of here over to the other side of our pedestal. And then we also need to mirror them this way as well, using the middle point of our base of our pedestal. There we go. Yeah, so then we should be left with something like that. Okay. Now is where the fun part comes. So we've got all these panels. They're all way oversized. We got to clean up the corners next. That's going to be our next objective here. That was weird. My team's just made the noise of like it hanging up, and I'm like, that's strange. All right, anyways, I'm putting these on the red layer just so I can be a little bit less confused when I come back over here. But what I'm going to do is move these back using the move command. We moved these over 500 inches earlier. Just picked a random number. It wasn't anything, specific. But now we've got this whole mess here of all these panels that are needing to be mitered together. Going to get a little messy, but we'll be okay. I've done this, I think this is the 3rd time doing this model now. So I think we got it. All right. So we'll pick a couple of panels to start with. What I would like to do is probably start with these two. Let's start with these two down here. No particular reason, they just looked nice. So what we're going to do is use the interfere again. We're going to select that panel, select this panel, and then make sure we don't delete that object in the middle. Go back into wireframe again. And you can see here, this time it's not really like a diamond shape, but you can see that middle line here, and that's what we're trying to use as our slicing plane. So as we go about selecting those points, we're just going to be using that sort of middle line that we're seeing here, and then going up this face of the interference object too. So let's go ahead and slice these. We'll select both the red and the white panels, hit enter, and we're going to go into our 3-point slice again. And we're going to get this endpoint here, this endpoint right here, and then I'm going to come up to the top of that green interference object, and we're going to grab that point there. I'm going to ask you if you want to do a point on a desired side, but since we are slicing 2 panels, I don't want to do that. It'll erase stuff that I don't want to erase. So I'm going to say keep both for now. Delete the interference object. We don't need it anymore. And then anything that's sticking out, let's just go ahead and get rid of it because it's no longer needed. You go back into conceptual, and you can kind of see that that made a pretty nice miter right there. It's hard to see, but navigate around it, you can see that it does make a really nice like shape right there, where although that's a little goofy, but we'll get to that. I see there's a little bit of a weird goofy thing going on there. I think that's actually because the panel is one consistent thickness, and from the outside that won't be visible. From the inside of the cube you would see that. But let's bring everything back. Okay, and then we'll just keep working our way up this side of the cube. So we're going to take this panel and this panel next. Kind of look like little angel wings or something. All right, time to clip them off. All right, we're going to interfere these 2 panels together. And it doesn't matter which panel you select first. It doesn't even matter. You just got to select one, hit enter, then select the other one. So I could have selected them the opposite way too, and it would have done the exact same thing. All right, now, just like before, we got this little green box in here. Trying to see if I can see what's going on. Strange. That might be right. It just looks very weird. Me. I guess that is where they overlap though. All right, well, we will give it a shot and see how it goes. All right, let's slice these panels. Usually what you'd see is you'd have like a consistent point from like there to there, but like these appear to be a little bit weird. But we'll just have faith in AutoCAD and see if it actually does it right. So we'll do 3 points here. I'm going to pick a point on this middle intersecting line. So I'm going to go midpoint on that because I don't really, well, I could grab the end point too, I guess it doesn't really matter. So I just need to grab that point there, this point here, and then a point here where those 2 panels meet on that green profile. We're going to keep both sides, and we're going to delete the exterior part. So those 2, the angel wing things that were there, we're getting rid of those. Bring that back. So from the outside, it's a very clean miter. On the inside, it's a little weird. And I don't know if that is just how it's going to be. It might be because of the geometry of it. But from the outside, though, it actually looks really good. Like you can see those two corners are actually coming together very nicely. So we'll just keep moving. We're gonna take these two panels next and do the same thing. It's a very repetitive process, so you know, that's why it's a really good training tool for doing the 3-point slice, so you can really get a good grasp on that. Makes you have to do it a bunch of times to be able to draw this thing. All right, so 3-point slice. And I'm taking the middle line here where those two panels meet, and then the two outside points where the two panels would meet. All right, this one does look a little bit weird, and I'll kind of go through why that is. For right now, it's really because these panels are not at the same height at the moment. I was kind of waiting until we cleaned up that corner before I fixed that. But what we're gonna do is, because this green line is the top of the pedestal, anything above that line, we need to get rid of. It's just gonna make a mess. So let's go ahead and clean that up. We'll take all these panels that are sticking up above that line right now. And we are gonna go ahead and use a 3-point slice on those as well. And this time what I'm gonna do is just take a point on that green line. I'm gonna come out straight over here and come out straight over here. And what that's doing is it's creating like a slicing plane that's going straight across the top, and it's gonna buzz the top of that right off, and it's gonna be just flat at the top then. So these are all trash. So it's starting to get that shape, as you can see. A little goofy still, but we'll get there. A little bit more cleaning up to do, but that's that first corner. Let's see how that came together. So I can go through and do the rest of the 3 corners here. Do you guys want me to keep explaining like the steps, or do you think you got it for that, or?
Repetition's always good.
Okay, I'll keep going. I just didn't want to bore you guys because I was like, I can zip through it if you want. If you want me to explain those, I can. But yeah, so it's just a lot of cleanup work. I'm gonna finish this off real quick. If you drink Monsters, I don't know if they have these up north, but they just came out with these, and these are really good. This video is not sponsored by Monster, by the way, but but these are Blue Hawaiian. It's like coconut and pineapple. It's super good. All right, let me throw that away and then we'll get back to it. Here's a question for you guys too. Do you guys still collect monster tabs up in Illinois too?
I do not know if I've ever heard those words together in that phrase.
Okay, never mind. Cody, that sits over by you, he used to, oh, he does still have that cup. It's sitting on top of his picture frame. There's a Cubs cup up there.
Mhm.
And we used to do this as a group in engineering. We would, not that we've been trying to push people to drink Monsters, but if you were drinking them already, we would collect the tabs, because Monster used to have this thing where you could like turn in your tabs, and then they would allow you to buy stuff on their website and just pay
Oh,
for
that's
shipping.
so cool.
Yeah, so we used to do that all the time. I have I think Abby still has a Monster hat. I know I have one somewhere.
That's
Why
awesome.
not just trade them in to get more Monster?
Well, what would be the fun in that?
It would be economically sound.
It'd be like
Budget
them.
friendly.
It'd be like the one episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they made their own currency in the bar. All right. Anyways, I'm gonna keep doing this. So we're interfering these two. Whoops. See, I almost messed up. Interfere, interfere. Whoop. And then we're gonna slice up these panels too. We're gonna keep going around the outside of the pedestal till we get a nice nice shape going on. So slice, and then 3 points. And then boop, boop, and boop. Do you guys think you'd be comfortable actually working on this later if you want to actually give it a shot?
Yeah, for sure. I followed along pretty well until wireframe 3D
Okay.
slicing, and then things got messy, so I'll definitely be going back and starting from there.
Yeah, it's kind of messy, when you get all the panels coming together, but the more you work at it, the more you chip away at it, the easier it gets. Like it's gonna be a lot easier to see what's happening once we start cleaning up the corners more and cleaning up the edges of the panels. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's a little goofy at first, but again, it's a lot of repeat steps. So interfere, object 1, object 2, keep that interference object, go into your wireframe, and we're going to slice these. Boop, boop, and 3-point slice. Okay. Boop.
Just know when I start this myself, you will hear a lot of frustration noises.
Hmm. All right. Let's see. That's a nice looking little, almost looks like a hood ornament. All right. Hey, we only got 2 corners left though. All right. Then we can work on the little base trim part of it and the removable top. I mean, that stuff's real easy compared to this, but whole purpose of the exercise is to kind of go through this part. So isolate and then interfere. Really, so it's, I guess if you want to write down the steps in the process, really what it is you're isolating the parts you want to eventually chop up. So you isolate your parts, use your interfere command, switch to wireframe, 3-point slice your objects, go back to conceptual, and then delete the parts you don't want. So that's kind of like the whole, you got to keep doing those steps over and over in order to get to where you want to be. But once you get through all 3 or all 4 sides of this pedestal, though, it's actually going to be, worth your weight here. So, worth all the little steps you had to take to get there. So, keep on moving. I was telling Cody before we started today, at one point, the first time I ever taught how to do this model as a training example, I had a group of newbies that we were working with, and what we ended up doing was I'd asked them to pick one of their favorite models that they've worked on during their training time. And I used to have a really tiny 3D printer that was like essentially a toy because it can only do like 4x4, like by 4. It was very small. And I was like, pick your favorite model that we worked on together and I'll 3D print them for you guys over summer. And I did that. And this was one of the ones that I 3D printed for one of our guys back then. And it turned out really cool.
It's super
I
cool.
was, yeah, it
Very
was
high
like,
motivational tool.
yeah, it was like, it was kind of neat to see like a miniature scaled model of the thing. All right. 3-point slicing it. And then keep both sides. Delete, delete, and delete. Unhide. Go back to conceptual. Okay, look at that, look at that, look at that. We got one more side to go. And then I think that's probably about it. We can work on the little fine tuning parts of it after that. Isolate, interfere, and and then delete, or not delete. 2D wireframe, slice, boop, boop, 3 points. And we're going to go from there to there to there. All right, both sides. Back to, I'll delete that first. Back to conceptual. And then remove the excess parts. Isolate, interfere. And then 2D wireframe. And then slice and 3-point slice. Okay. Like a wrap, an AutoCAD wrap. All right, boop, boop. All right, and then unhide for, I guess I need to do that too. Okay, oops, I don't know if, okay, we'll just do this real quick. I don't know what's going on there, but we're gonna fix it. Three-point slice, boop, boop, and oh man. Where's my third point? Doesn't seem right, but I'm gonna try it and see what happens. Maybe that worked. I guess it worked. All right. Okay. Well, I guess the important thing to remember here is that these inside panels aren't going to meet perfectly. They're going to be a little strange. Like you can see there's some weird overlap and some other weird stuff happening there. They're not going to be perfect, but they're going to be, from the outside, it's going to look normal. The inside just overlaps a little bit at the corners, and that's just because the only other way you could go about making that not overlap like that is to, like we talked about earlier, is if you warped your panel, but we aren't going to do that. What will one of the reasons why that can happen too is, let me turn off some of these. I wonder if there's another way I could do this too. But if you don't make those panels off to the side like we did, where we made them flat and then we aligned them, sometimes you might accidentally, see if I can do this here. Sometimes you might accidentally create some kind of geometry that doesn't exactly work. I'm just going to see if I can do a different method on this. I'm going to use the, make sure that's closed. I'm trying something here real quick. So I feel like there's another way you can do this too, other than making panels and then aligning them, and then making panels and aligning them. The reason I didn't do it that way was because I think the corners would be really hard to miter with the 3-point slice after we did that. But what I kind of did was I traced over one of the panels with a 3D polyline just to see what would happen. And there should be a command in here. I think it's called thicken. I'm going to try that and see if that'll do it. Oh, I guess it has to be a surface for that to work. Well, dang, I guess that didn't work. I was thinking I could actually, oh, you could actually press pull that and make your panel that way. But like I was saying though, if you do it this way, I'll show you why I didn't do it this way, because I think it's going to cause some issues. 3D polyline. Let's just say I traced over this triangle with those 3 polylines and see what we would do. Again, got to make sure it's closed. And move that over 50 inches like that. And then use press pull on that to make this that. So, okay, yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to avoid. Is you get some little corner pieces like this that you'd have to spend a lot of time cleaning up. And like these do intersect, so you'd still have to do the intersect command or the interfere command and then slice it anyway. But you'd have to clean up these little things, which is why I was trying to oversize the panels to make it really clear as to when those things were overlapping or when they shouldn't have been there. Because it's really easy to miss stuff like that here. So you could do it this way, where if you trace over these with 3D polylines and then used your press pull command, you could actually press pull the panels and make the shape, but it would still have a lot of little cleanup work to do like that. And so I tried to avoid that by just going the standard route of making the panel off to the side, aligning it, and then cleaning up the edges with the slice command, or three-point slice. But because we're using this as an exercise to learn 3-point slice, I think I'd rather have you guys do it the way we started doing, where we make the panel, align it, and slice it, because it's going to give you more background on that command. Let's see. What did I do with my model? I didn't delete it, did I? Oh no, it's on a different layer. Ooh, okay. All right. So let's talk about the other parts of this model that we need to do still. So going back to the base a bit, what they're showing here is essentially just a little bit of base trim that sits below the pedestal. It's set in just like a toe kick on a cabinet. You can see that it is set in here. It's 3 inches in from the outside edge and 4 inches down from the floor to the underside of that panel. So, and then even below that too, there are these little things here. It's a 1/2 inch gap to the floor. And then they have these things that are like furniture glides, which you can buy them at like, I've seen them at the dollar store, things like that. But it's like a little pad that allows you to be able to slide the furniture around easier. And that's what we ended up using here instead of casters to be able to move these. I'll go back to our original drawing just to show what that looked like, because it looks pretty similar to what they already had anyway. But there are those pads right there. So really that's nothing too crazy. But we can draw in that base though. And then we'll come back to the top part and figure that part out next. So let's do the base first. So let's go back over to their drawing and find that little section view that showed the base trim. Where did I put it? Oh, right there. Let me get rid of that too. Okay, so so we have this outline here. This outline is pretty much the bottom edge of all of our panels as we see it right now. So what I can do is I can offset that line in 3 inches, which would be the start of my base trim. That would be this face right here. And so from there, I'm going to offset that in another 3/4 of an inch to form the thickness of the base trim itself. Okay. And what I can do with that is if I wanted to, these are going to be mitered together in order to make this look finished on all sides. So we're going to take that and we're going to connect these lines together to make those miters. Okay. And then we can use the press pull command to start to bring this to life. I'm going to click on there. And we're going to set this to be, well, we want it to be 4 inches tall. So we can start with that, but then we have to chop a 1/2 inch off the bottom of it. So we're going to go 4 inches there, 4 inches there, 4 inches there. Oops, what the heck did I do? I guess I have to slice that. My bad. Okay, there we go. All right, so the base trim's gonna kind of sit like that. All right, and then when we built this originally, we did build it similar to what they have here. We made this little base plate essentially inside of there. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the profile. Well, no, we don't want to do that. We could do that. We could do that. We're gonna offset this in 3/4 of an inch for the thickness of our panels. And then we're gonna press pull this up 3/4 of an inch to make the base plate that sits inside of the pedestal. So 0.75. And then we just need to raise this up so that it's inside of our actual pedestal here. So 4 inches up. I got a little bit of goofiness going on. Anyways, so that should cover the base plate. There is intentionally supposed to be a hole in there for the wiring to come down through there. I think what we ended up doing was we ended up using like 2x4s, if I remember right, to frame this part out to give those furniture glides something to attach to. If I go back to our drawing here, you can actually see those. They're not dimensioned very well, but they are there. So if we want to throw those in, we can. I'm gonna use the box command up here to do that. And what I'm gonna do is kind of start with, oh, hello. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's not do that. I'm gonna start over here and I'm gonna go, because the 2x4 is actually 1.5 inches by 3.5. So I'm gonna make this 1.5 inches thick. And then we're gonna go 3.5 inches tall. So that would be like if you were to use a standard 2x4. We're gonna drop that in here. Whoops. Need to raise it up so it's touching the top of my base. And then I'm gonna slice this to trim it back to here. I'm gonna keep that side. Actually, what I'm gonna do too is I'm gonna only show these parts so we can actually see what's happening here. There's a lot going on. So let's just isolate the parts that we need right now. All right. So let's slice this back to this line here. Just take a cutting plane out to there. And then I want to keep this side of it. So I'm going to click over on this side of where I'm cutting here. Then I can mirror that over like that. And then I'm going to put a 2x4 here and a 2x4 here as well. So I'm just going to copy what I have drawn currently. Use the 3D rotate command to spin it around using the blue axis here or the Z axis for that. Just like so. Use the move command again, and we're going to move that back to be right there. And we'll slice off any excess of that 2x4 that we don't need. Okay. All right. And from there, last couple things I want to do. One thing I do need to take that base trim and raise it up a 1/2 inch. So you could do it a couple ways. You could do the press pull method where you could take the bottom of that base and move it up like this. You could use a 3-point slice and you could chop it here as well. So if you wanted to do that, you could do that as well. You'd slice those 2 pieces, activate your 3-point, and then grab a point there and there. And then you can just delete the excess parts. Either way is going to get you to the same result. So there's multiple ways to do everything in AutoCAD. So you got that. I'm going to extend this base plate to cover the 2x4s here too. So I'm going to use press pull for that because I think it's going to be the easiest method. Just clicking on the face of these, bringing them in, bringing them in. 2. Oh my gosh, there we go. All right, cool. All right, before we call the base trim done, let's add those furniture glides in. So we're going to talk about a new command here. We have not worked on this one yet. This one's called revolve, like a revolver. We are going to use the revolve command to create that shape. All right. So we know that the shape is a 1/2 inch tall. That is a known. I don't know that we have the, I guess I could scale it if I really wanted to. See what we ended up doing originally. Let me see here. So if I scale this drawing, let's see what that furniture glide is here. About 4 inches wide. So it should be 4 inches by a 1/2 inch tall. So what we need to do is go back to our top-down view and off to the side over here. Let's draw in a rectangle that's 4 inches by a 1/2 inch to start with. So 0.5 tab 4 inches there. Okay. So then from there, I'm going to take a line straight down in the middle. And we are going to, we're going to draw an arc here. So a 3-point arc, we're going to start at this corner, pick the middle of our arc here, and then pick this corner here. All right. Now, when we go to revolve this, much like any other thing in 3D, you do need to make sure that you're working with a closed polyline for it to actually create a 3D solid object. So to do that, we're going to come over here. We're going to use the bpoly command. Here we go. And we're going to pick a point inside of this shape here. That will create a polyline of that shape, and it is closed, so we're good there. There's a couple lines underneath of it, so I'm going to delete those real quick. And then to use the revolve command, what you need to do is you need to, well, we'll type it in first. Select that polyline that we just created for the shape of what we're building. All right. And then it's going to ask you for an axis point. What that is you are going to be drawing a line in the center of where you want this to revolve around. So that's where this line comes in. So we're going to grab that point. We're going to grab that point. And you got a little Pac-Man here. That's your revolve command. So what it's doing is taking that shape that we drew, and it's essentially revolving it around that center line that we drew when it asked for the axis line. The axis line is your center of where it's revolving. So that's what we're doing here to make this weird shape. And if you want it to be a full circle, all you got to do is type in 360 for the angle. So now we got this. We can use the 3D rotate command to flip it so it's facing the right way. Kind of looks like a contact lens, actually. All right, so we're going to move that and put it over here on the bottom of our pedestal. I'm going to slide it in so that way it is lined up with the corner using the quadrant snap of that contact lens right there. We're going to mirror that around like that, and then mirror it like that as well, so that we have 4 of those. All right, and that should take care of the furniture glides. All right, we can unhide what we have, because the last thing we need to do now is make the top cap on top of this guy, and then we're done. Believe it or not, that's it. So, wow, 2 hours in. I can't believe we've done that in 2 hours. Hopefully I wasn't going too quick. I just didn't realize it was only 2 hours in. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So looking at what we did previously, there is a border piece that sits inside of like it miters into the panels at the top of that cube. And then after that, we have this panel here with an 1/8 inch gap between the panel and the flat top piece. And that 1/8 inch gap is where this part here is the part that's removable. Everything else is just like a border trim sort of piece. And you can kind of see that in the top-down view too. If I go back to our original drawing on F5.0, you can kind of see that. It is a little hard to read what's going on because there's a lot of lines and a lot of dimensions, but that is what that gap is there. So anything within this square is removable to be able to get the wiring down to the floor. So that's what we're going to build next, and then we'll be done with this guy. So let's see, how far did we, or how wide did we make that border piece? Let's see if we can find that information. Might be in the section view. Okay, it looks like we made it at 2 inches off the corner or the edge. So we can go back to the plan view that we had drawn. That goes away. There were some lines we drew in for the base, which we no longer need. So we can kind of delete and clean those up a little bit. They're no longer needed. Okay, so this line that we're seeing right here, that box, is the outside edge of that 2 inch dimension. So what we need to do is take that and we need to offset it in 2 inches from there. And then that should create the border piece that goes around. If we wanted to take a step further than that, we can go an 1/8 inch in from there to create that gap. And then also create the removable panel that sits on top. I think we did miter the corners of this piece, but I'm going to check and see. Oh, we didn't. We just made it out of one piece. So this whole trim piece is all one part. Okay. So let's go ahead and create that. We'll press pull that and see if we can make something work here. Make that 3/4 of an inch thick. And then I'm going to isolate this part here just for a quick sec. There's a lot of parts underneath of this pedestal and I don't want to mess anything up. So I'm going to press pull that up 3/4 as well. Unhide everything. And then we need to raise this up so that it's sitting at the top of our pedestal. So to do that, I'm going to set it at the line of the floor and then raise it up the 34 inches for the height of our pedestal, like that. Okay. Then only thing really we have left to do here is we're going to miter the trim piece to the panels now. So I need to isolate that trim piece and isolate these top panels to do that. Should be left with something like this. Okay, and then we're going to go into our 2D wireframe mode, and we're going to use the interfere command again to get these little interference objects that we need to get our 3-point slice here. So we're going to use that now. Slice the red panel and the trim piece, and we're going to go down to 3 points here. And I need to select, I'm going to say this point here. If I turn this around a little bit, you can kind of see where that is. That's right at the base of the top panel and where the side panel meets that. So I'm going to go from here to here. And then I'm going to select this point here, but I want to be very careful about that so I don't accidentally select the wrong point because I could have accidentally picked one of these by mistake. So I spun my camera view around so I could see that. And when I'm done, I'm going to say I want to keep both sides here. All right, and then we're just going to clean this up a little bit. We'll delete the interference geometry, delete the excess little pieces of the panels that we don't need anymore. And if I went back to conceptual, you can kind of see how that looks now. It's a lot cleaner. That seam is coming together really well. And we just got to go around the shape of this and do that all the way around. So same process as before. Go to wireframe, use interfere. One object, enter, second object, enter, keep the deleting or the deleted part. Kind of like to put it on its own layer or a different color. That way it's easier to see the lines of what it is that I'm trying to grab points on. So let's slice these two panels, trim piece and the panel itself. And we're going to go into 3-point mode again. That corner to, goodness gracious, that corner. And then I want to grab this corner here, which is the outside top corner of the pink object. Okay, delete any excess panels we don't need. And we'll just keep on going all the way around. We got 2 more sides to do, and we're home free. Okay. Might take some practice to know what points to grab to when you're using the interference object, but after a while it kind of clicks and you kind of understand like I need to grab what I'm doing is creating that miter, so I need the 3 points that would create that miter through if I was slicing through with like a butter knife or a saw blade, whatever. So we'll grab those 3 points. We will get rid of the interference object and the excess panels. Then we have the last one over here. Interfere. Boom and boom. All right. Just like before, switch that on over to a layer that makes sense where we can actually see the difference between the colors of our top panel and our side panel. Then we're going to go here and 3-point slice that last edge right here. So I'm going to grab this corner down here, this corner here, and then this outside corner here. All right. Now, I think that should do it. Let's go back into our conceptual view so we can see everything in 3D. And then unhide the rest of our panels. And look at that. Got a nice little cash register stand. If I had a model of a cash register, I could put it on there for you guys, but I don't think I do. We'll do something fun though. We'll find a model list to throw in there. Let's say appliances. What do I have in here? Oh, none of that stuff's gonna be cool. How about this? We'll make it like an Apple store, but we'll make it an Apple store back in 1998. We'll put one of these on top of it. Because every pedestal's got to have something fun on top of it, right? Like an art piece. Ancient history there.
Was that phone from before or after the apple got eaten?
Nice. All right. Enough fun with that, but I wanted to at least do something fun to put the cherry on top of the model, make it look nice, but I wish I had a cash register. It would make more sense, but I don't. So anyways, if you wanted to at this point, you could kind of put everything on the correct layers. Right now, everything's kind of on a matched layer. thing here because I didn't really do that as we were going through. I'll probably call this PRX because I think it was primed or painted when we did this before. So any of these panels, I'm going to call them primed. All right, and then anything here in the middle, we'll put it on our plywood layer because really it would just be a wood material, and then these would just be our furniture glides, which you could constitute that as hardware. I mean, that's fine. We'll call it hardware. And the only other thing is the telephone, which I'll put that on the spice layer as it should be. Boom. How about that? Oh, and also too, when if you guys would like to plot this, you can. Just like before, when you do that, you can take flat shots off of your model to do that. You always want to make sure that when you do the flat shot command, you don't have the obscured lines turned on because it will make an invisible model or make it so you can see through your model, but you don't really want to do that. But when you do your flat shots, you kind of want to set everything to by layer, turn off your obscured lines, and when you have your drawing, you can hit create. And you can do, 2D drawings off of your 3D model just like that. So probably turn you guys loose on this unless you guys got questions or anything. Otherwise, I am here too anytime you do have anything that comes up. And I will get you the drawings that I have for this too. That way you're not trying to go digging around looking for them. I'll go ahead and send those over to you guys right now. While I'm thinking about it, I'll put them in our group chat here. All right, one sec. Let me get to the group chat. Where are you? There you are. All right. Let me go to my desktop and pull those drawings off of that training folder. Nope, not that one. All right. So these F5 drawings were the original on-site shop drawings that we had built for the pedestal. But I'm also going to give you guys the architectural drawings for these as well. That was part of, I zoom back over here. They had their shop drawings on page I2 1019. Let's see, where's my folder? I'm going to put this in that training folder too. And we had a plan view, an enlarged plan view of that here too, but really the main page you're going to need is that first one we just had with the highlight on it. So let me close out of these. And we'll send over both of those. Well, and I gotta open that up again. I don't know what's going on with that. It's almost like the highlight's just not going through, or it's just a highlight and nothing else. Weird. All right, I'm gonna have to pull that drawing back up. That stinks. That's okay. Apparently it won't let me highlight that one. Anyway, that's the the top-down view is there. The different side elevations are there, so you have that too. And then there are some section views on there as well. So I'll send that over to you guys. Oh, gosh. And then if you guys want, you can try to work through that. Unless you got some red lines you're working on right now, you can do that first. But, I'd like to see if you guys get through some of the stuff and see if you run into any questions or anything on how to use that 3-point slice command or the interfere. I'd be happy to help with any of that too. So, but yeah, we'll probably leave it there then for right now and turn you guys loose so you can do what you want to do. If you got red lines, we'll do that. If you want to do this, that's fine too. So, anybody got questions or anything? Nothing.
No questions. Just as a heads up, I'm still waiting on some answers for my red lines, and then I did submit the K11 to NDF this morning.
Okay, sounds good. Anything I can help get answers for you at all on that?
Not unless you happen to just see Josh Welch or Rod. I don't know if Welch is there in Charlotte.
He's here. Well, Rod's car is
Just-
here.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Josh
like,
is here too.
I'm just waiting on answers. So if you happen to see him, just like, want to poke him and be like, any updates? But
Yeah, of course.
that's pretty much
I
it.
can go bug them in a little bit here and see if I can
Cool.
get you some help.
Sweet. I don't know
they're
if they've
both
gotten
here.
anything new or if they're expecting anything new, but I know that they were waiting on GC answers. So
Yeah. All right. Well, cool.
yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, no problem. I will go ahead and reach out to them. I'm gonna pull up the email here and just see if I can get them to help us out with that. So, but yeah, of course. And you guys are good on your YouTube. Don't have anything either. No. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, this recording is going to be saved in this chat. So if you want to use it for any reference material, it's there. Drawings are in the chat too, so you have access to those as well. And just let me know if anything comes up. All right. Well, nice
Thanks.
working with you guys today. Hopefully, you have some fun with this one. All right. See ya.